Okay, so I almost wasn't going to make this video because tomorrow morning I have a flight to Oklahoma and I'm not going to have a whole lot of time to edit this anyway, so this might look a little bit different than my usual videos. But I need to talk about Thunderbolts, the latest entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let me just start off by saying this. The MCU might just be back. Thunderbolts, in my opinion, is an incredibly enjoyable ride from start to finish, but it also takes a surprisingly dark and emotional turn in ways that I didn't expect. The film stars Florence Pugh, Sebastian, Wyatt Russell, David Harbour, Louis Pullman, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and without spoiling too much up front, Florence Pugh's Yelena Belova is the heart of the story. Through a secret covert mission steeped in deception, she finds herself in a room with US agent, Ghost, and none other than Bob Reynolds, played by Louis Pullman, a mystery man who signed up for a medical experiment that gives him some powers with some terrifying consequences. And what follows is a story of this ragtag group of anti-heroes discovering that they have the capacity to do some real good in this world. Not only that, they might be the only ones available. And that's all I'm really going to say about the basic plot because I don't want to ruin the experience for anyone. One of the standout aspects of Thunderbolts is how cohesive it feels from start to finish. Lately, a lot of MCU movies have felt disjointed, overly edited, rewritten, reshot, and stitched together based on test screenings. Look no further than the last MCU film, Captain America: Brave New World. And this often leads to films that feel like a patchwork of ideas rather than a singular creative vision, but Thunderbolts feels like it was made with a clear, unified purpose. This film has a distinct style thanks to the creative team behind Netflix's Beef, a show that I absolutely love that everyone should check out. It feels relatively light on action, but heavy on performances and emotional depth, which makes it stand out in the MCU lineup. So let's talk about those performances. In particular, Florence Pugh and Louis Pullman are exceptional, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Florence Pugh continues to prove that she's one of the greatest on-screen criers of her generation, or any generation for that matter. There's one scene in the third act that for sure brought a tear to my eye. And Louis Pullman is tasked with playing triple duty, essentially, where we need to see him play multiple versions of himself. I'm putting multiple in air quotes. I don't mean that literally, but there's this complexity to the character that I'm going to mention in a bit, but I thought he handled it wonderfully. The rest of the crew is great also, but mostly there for quips and to just fill up space and scenery. David Harbour acts as the comic relief most of the time, and if the talkative, blunt Russian guy shtick works on you, then you're going to have a blast here. And I want to also give a quick shout out to the score of this film, done by the experimental electronica band Sun Lux. There are a few moments in this where the score jumped out at me, in particular when we get our first glimpses of Bob Reynolds being revealed as the Sentry. It made me really want to take a deep dive into Sun Lux's discography. Now, I do want to dip my toe into some spoiler territory, though if you've seen any of the promotional material for this movie, most of it is spoiled or heavily implied in there anyway, but if you don't want to know anything else about this movie, stop here. Okay, so one of the most profound aspects of Thunderbolts is in its exploration of redemption and second chances. This theme runs deep in the narrative, offering a thoughtful examination of what it means to carry the weight of past actions while striving for a better future. The film doesn't just glance at redemption in a superficial way. It digs into the messy, complicated process of confronting one's worst self and finding a path forward. At the heart of this exploration is Yelena Belova. Yelena is a woman haunted by the things that she's done in her life, the lives that she's taken, the choices she made under the shadow of the Red Room. She's a former assassin shaped by manipulation and violence, now struggling with the question of whether she deserves to be called a hero. In the very beginning of this film, we see Yelena at her lowest, grappling with an identity crisis that feels deeply human. Is she defined by the worst things that she's done, or is she capable of being something more? This struggle resonates universally, especially for anyone who's faced guilt, regret, or self-doubt. I know that I do. The film doesn't offer redemption as a simple, clean resolution. Instead, it portrays it as a process, a journey punctuated by setbacks, moments of clarity, and ultimately, a choice. Yelena's story intersects beautifully with Bob Reynolds, played by Louis Pullman. Bob is a man burdened by his past, including the trauma of an abusive childhood and a history of personal failures. His decision to undergo this dangerous experiment in search of power is not about vanity or ambition, but a desperate attempt to find worth, to become someone that he and the world can be proud of. And yet the film makes it clear that redemption is not about erasing the past. Bob's transformation into the Sentry comes with its own darkness, manifesting as the Void. It's a physical embodiment of his inner demons and self-loathing. The Void is relentless, feeding on Bob's fears and his failures and threatening to consume not just him, but everyone around him. The brilliance of this metaphor is in how it externalizes the internal battle that many people face on a day-to-day basis, the fight against the parts of ourselves that whisper that we are unworthy, irredeemable, or broken beyond repair. There's this moment of catharsis when the team confronts the Void alongside Bob, and in my opinion, it was nothing short of extraordinary. Instead of fighting the darkness with fists or powers, the group embraces Bob, literally and emotionally, and it's a moment of raw vulnerability as they affirm that he is not alone and that his worth is not defined by his scars or his past mistakes. This act of collective redemption underscores a powerful truth that we're not meant to face our demons in isolation. It's through community, connection, and compassion that we find the strength to rise above them. The film also challenges the traditional superhero narrative by making the act of redemption a communal effort. Yelena, Bucky, US Agent, Red Guardian, and Ghost each bring their own flaws and regrets to the table, and it's through their shared experiences and mutual support that they all begin to heal. The movie emphasizes that second chances aren't given, they're earned, often through messy, painful work of reckoning with oneself and making amends. And the movie's portrayal of emotional baggage feels deeply personal and profound. It's not just a superficial nod to mental health. It really dives into depression and the struggle to reconcile with our past mistakes. What sets Thunderbolts apart is its focus on character and emotion alongside the spectacle. To say that it's not your typical MCU blockbuster would be a bit of an overstatement, but it is more contained and introspective. The film isn't afraid to delve into mature themes while still maintaining a broader appeal. And when the film does go dark, like when the Sentry is turned into the Void and he sends a little girl into the Void, evaporating her in an instant to a shadowy figure on the ground, it's a haunting image that I think garnered an audible gasp in my theater. We don't expect an MCU film to go that far, and yet, here it is. There's even the recurring nightmare where Yelena has to relive the moment that she lured a classmate of hers into the woods so that she could be assassinated as her first test in the Red Room. Also, pretty incredibly dark. The marketing hinted at this movie being an MCU movie with an indie feel, and it somewhat lives up to that. It is introspective, diving into these characters' struggles and choices without leaning too hard on the spectacle, though the spectacle is there. The emotional stakes just feel a little bit more real. It's the kind of movie that sticks with you because it's not just about saving the world, it's about these people trying to figure out if they could even save themselves. This movie definitely feels like a turning point for the MCU. It's still got the humor and the action that you expect, but it's more grounded and thoughtful. You walk away not just entertained, but really thinking about second chances, redemption, and what that all means in your own life. Now, if I had to nitpick, the pacing isn't perfect. The setup of Bob Reynolds feels a bit drawn out, and the climactic Void sequence could have used a little bit more time to breathe. But these are minor issues in an otherwise really entertaining film. There's probably going to be some pretty lame reactions coming out about this movie, like, they save the world with the power of friendship. And like, while it's a disingenuous take, it's not totally wrong, but I think that's kind of what makes this movie a bit more beautiful. I guess at the end of the day, I just like that this is an MCU movie that feels like it has something to say. Thunderbolts constantly subverted my expectations, delivering a story that's not just entertaining, but deeply moving. It reminded me why I fell in love with the MCU in the first place. And if this is the direction that Marvel is headed, count me in. Thank you guys so much for watching this. This was a bit of an abridged version of what I typically like to do for these videos. I usually like to give all of my thoughts, really pour everything. But for this one, I'm recording this pretty late at night. I do have to get up in the morning to get on a flight to Oklahoma for a work thing. And yeah, hopefully in the future, I will be able to kind of not do these abridged versions, and maybe I'll come back and talk about Thunderbolts in a little bit more detail in the future. But for now, those are some of my thoughts on Thunderbolts. Let me know what you thought of Thunderbolts down in the comments. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified when new videos come out on the channel, and I will see you all next time.